Hello, Internet. Gino, that Reno Reactor here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today it's time to see if we're still there. We're talking about the game Still There. That was... oh, boy. Well, welcome to the show. I am joined, as always, by my fellow space explorers, Pete Busby.
What's going on, everybody? I picked this game.
And M. Palladino.
Yes.
Hello. Hi.
Go, Pete.
Yeah, we do things. Oh, okay. Let me do my thing. So I picked this game. I'm excited to talk about it. On this week's Fun Fact, I'd like to shout out an article from the Cambridge University Press. So back in 1910, this guy, Dr. George Murray Levick.
That's not a real person's name.
George Murray Levick, I'm telling you. He was born in 1876. It's an 1876 name. But in 1910, he wrote these notes on the sexual habits of the Adelaide penguin, which Cambridge University Press refused to publish.
What?
Yep, because it described I will just read the description here. The frequency of sexual activity, autoerotic behavior, and seemingly aberrant behavior of young unpaired male and female penguins, including necrophilia, sexual coercion, sexual and physical abuse of chicks, and non-procreative sex. And Cambridge was like, oh, no, we will not publish that. But in 2012, they decided they should because it had scientific merit. So go check it out. You can read about the, kinky things penguins do.
Penguins are freaks.
You have micro-targeted this message, and I appreciate it. I find that oftentimes the animal world's sexual activities are much more wide and varied than humans like to think.
They're gross.
They are. They'll fuck anything most of the time. And apparently we have scientific evidence that penguins, any sort of abhorrent sexual activity that a human gets into, or things that are considered devious, animals do it too. Especially
check it
penguins.
Out. I encourage
penguins
it.
in particular.
Yeah, they are the kinkiest of the animals.
Well, M, do we have any... Dang, now you've thrown me. Why don't we head to it? Should I do my obsession? We don't have an order now on whether the obsessions go before the emails.
You broke the order.
Broke my brain and also the order. If we could do the obsession first and then the emails, that way the feedback and then smoothly into the rest of the show. This is normal stuff.
Let's do that.
All right, so my obsession for this week is with Carol and Tuesday.
You already did that one.
Did I do it as an obsession, or did I just yell about it on the Discord?
No, you mentioned it before.
What is it?
It's the anime that's on Netflix now.
Yeah, you did it before.
Well, the second season came out, so now you can watch the second half of it.
You can be obsessed with individual seasons. That's fine.
The second season came out. I watched all of it. It came out 2 days ago, and I watched all of it yesterday. It was very good. It's still fun. It's still light and airy. Fine. If you should check that out. If you haven't checked out the first season, check out that, and then watch the second season. Both of them are very good. It gets into some more serious topics in the second season, but mostly it's just about having fun and making music with your friends. Then if I have to pick something different, I'll say Knives Out, the new movie, Knives Out.
Still want to see that.
I did. I saw it day after Thanksgiving. It was very good.
Oh, excellent. I had to watch 2 terrible movies around Christmas, and I decided that instead we should watch a good movie this time. And so we watched Knives Out.
Which 2?
Bombshell, not a good movie.
Okay.
Turns out if you followed the news in the last 2 to 3 years, you'll know most of the plot. And if the plot's not going to be interesting, then it's just down to impressions of Fox News personalities. Mm-hmm. And, Charlize Theron does a great job, but I don't know. I don't need to see John Lithgow being Roger Ailes for very long, and it's a lot of that. He does a good job, but it's just like, I know these people aren't great. And then I watched Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that movie's trash.
Yep. Garbage.
So instead, watch Knives Out. Knives Out, great movie. It's like Clue.
Mm-hmm.
Like the movie Clue also. Everyone's
also
a cartoon
a great movie.
character. Yes. Everyone's a cartoon character and very fun. It's a bunch of idiots and shitty people trying to get the inheritance of a very wealthy author. And there's a murder mystery, and Daniel Craig is doing an amazing Foghorn Leghorn accent for most of it. So you should check it out.
Is that by Rian Johnson?
Yep.
Oh, okay. The last good Star Wars movie creator.
Yep. Yeah. After she was set free from Star Wars.
Yeah.
onto making a fun movie for once. So, after the obsessions, let's go.
Discord report. This week on the Discord, we are gearing up for our Friday night game night, where we have decided to do a Pokemon game night, and we're going to be having a little gym challenge. Gino and I are going to be alternating as gym leaders, where we will have 2 teams of all one type, and then people will challenge us, and if they beat all 4 of our teams, they will get a prize. Other than that...
ZP's just wallowing in sadness about the Sacramento Kings.
Yes, of course.
Which we have an email on that.
And then we were talking about Star Wars and how not good it was. Because I saw that, and let me tell you, it's not very good.
Sure isn't.
All the stuff that we liked about other things in Star Wars, namely Clone Wars and Rebels.
I think that's pretty much it. So this Friday, we will be having a community game night playing Pokemon. So come check it out. And if you want to get in touch with our Discord and with the community, you can do so by supporting us, patreon.com/deeplistens. If you've been listening to the show, want to get in there, talk with the hosts, talk with other fans of the show, you can do so. Get involved in our game nights. You can also get in touch with the show by writing in at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can send in an email, and you will sound something like this. Dear Deep Listens companions, this comes in from Chris Zombie Pie Redacted. The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. As the year concludes, I figured it would be apt to ask you about how you would assess your year in gaming. And I don't just mean games played for the podcast, or your favorite games that were not discussed on the podcast. I can only imagine Pete played Three Houses and thinks the world of that game, even if I think that game is just okay. I know Em and Gino have become Pokemon crazy, but was there anything else non-podcast related that you enjoyed? If you wanted to know, because I know you all consider me the center of your universes, I've been playing a ton of Total Warhammer 2. Total War 3 Kingdoms came out early in the year, but despite that game's improvement to the Total War formula, I keep going back to Warhammer 2. Likewise, I've gone back to Hearts of Iron 4, in large part to the Total Conversion mod.
Kaiserreich?
Sure.
Finally, on a whim, I played Divinity Dragon Commander, and I can safely say that the game is the biggest platypus game made in the last 10 years. So let's start there, and then we've got some PSs and PPSs.
Would you want to kick it off with the first question?
You go ahead, because I have to think of what games I have not discussed on the podcast that I have also played.
Oh, geez. Let's see. Aside from games for the podcast, my year was a lot of Fire Emblem, and then Pokemon came out, and that has consumed the last, 2 months of my life. Before that, I remember nothing. I was playing Jedi Fallen Order. That game's pretty okay. Especially if you want your Star Wars craving itch and the movies aren't doing it for you. I also got into the Witcher series on Netflix, and I started playing The Witcher 3 because it was on sale, and that game's pretty good too. Other than that, I don't know. I've been using my Switch a lot more. That's turned into my go-to gaming system as opposed to my PS4, which I was using a lot last year, and now it's all Switch all the time. I don't know. There's a lot of good games on there now, but you gotta dig a little.
Agreed. How's about you, Pete?
So I was thinking as well. I did play a lot of Fire Emblem too, oddly enough, but I went back to the 3DS for mine. sort of catching up on entries I missed. Other than that, I really feel like I mostly played games for the podcast, but I feel like my year was more defined by games I didn't play. So I seem to recall there being a very popular game about a goose.
Untitled Goose Game. I got that for Christmas and have not played it yet.
Yeah, I remember hearing much about this game, and I didn't know anything else besides that it had a goose. I also, much to my chagrin, came across, I don't think it's released yet, but I think we're all aware of I Am Jesus Christ.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to play it. I just want to know what it is and why it exists, which might require playing it.
Oh no.
I know. So those are two recent ones that I'm not excited about, I'm not particularly interested in, but have seeped into my consciousness to the point that, like, even though I never played them, they somehow defined my year in gaming.
So for me, I think we discussed Pokemon on the podcast, but since we discussed the Pokemon podcast, I, at that point, had just finished the main story. There's a lengthy post-game in Pokemon Sword Shield. I did that and then realized, actually, I think they've made enough improvements to the competitive elements of Pokemon that I can actually do that now, because it used to just be ludicrous amounts of hours that you had to throw. You still can throw ludicrous amounts of hours into it. Hey,
Yeah.
can you throw ludicrous amounts of hours into
You
it?
sure can, Gino.
Thank you.
I look at my playtime and cry a little.
Expert in the field. So you can definitely still throw tons of hours out there, but there's now a pretty easy way to get onto competitive play. They made a lot of smart decisions about how you can adjust your Pokemon stats up and down, breeding, making a bunch of things transparent, ways to just increase the speed of everything. You get access to tons of money. There's a lot of Pokemon that scale with your level so that leveling your Pokemon is easy. Everything's EXP shared, so raising babies is easier too. So all of those little quality of life changes have made the high level of Pokemon play accessible to me for the first time. And I'm getting into that now, making teams. Like, I would not have suggested doing a gym challenge thing like we're doing for game night for previous Pokemon games, even though I always enjoyed them, because just the barrier to entry of breeding seemed ludicrous. Whereas now it's low enough for me that I can safely say this is probably going to be one of my most played games. And being on the Switch has allowed Pokemon Sword Shield to stick with me in a way that most of the other console games cannot. I can just take it, I can put it in a save state at any point, and I can just keep going from where I was, which makes it just an exceptional game for just a person whose life is not defined by easy 1-2 hour chunks of unmolested time. So even though we discussed it on the podcast, that game has become even more, it's been an even higher esteem for me, and it's defined my year even more than previously. I don't think there are any other major games that I haven't discussed on the podcast in one way or another. There will soon be some for the coming community endurance run, but that has not come yet. So I think we've discussed most of the games that I really enjoyed this year. So the last part of this email. P.S. Also, this NBA season has been pure misery. If Pete and Gino could replace my Kings fandom with a different but similar team, which team would it be?
Different but similar to the, like, wouldn't that just be as shitty and depressing? Isn't that like the raison d'etre of the Kings?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it would maybe the Hawks, maybe the Magic. I think it'd have to be a team that just sucks and has sucked for a long time and seems rudderless and has a terrible general manager and probably also a terrible head coach. So
Orlando?
Orlando?
Maybe,
yeah. I believed in them also. I think the Kings and Orlando both bamboozled me this year. Maybe the Pistons?
Yeah, you could do Pistons. Suns are a little too bad. In their current incarnation.
I think they're similarly bad, though. I think the Suns are another good answer. Like, terrible owner, constantly meddling, making short-sighted decisions constantly for no reason. They seem more like a farm team for the other 30 teams, the other 29 teams, than as a functional franchise. I
would probably go Orlando.
Okay.
I think.
I'm going to say the Suns, because I think it's got all the same problems. Or the Knicks. You could...
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Let's not discount the Knicks.
Yeah, just pick one of the three teams with the worst owners, the Knicks, the Suns, and the Kings, and then they'll usually suck any given year. And then PSS, tell M the Artificer class in
PPS.
it says PSS. I'm sorry.
Oh, you screwed it up then.
Postscript
That's
script.
fault.
I'm just reading it. Tell M the Artificer class in Eberron is pure madness and a whole lot of fun. I don't know what that means.
So there is a new D&D expansion,
Oh.
or I don't know if this is a campaign or what, setting, I guess, book that came out. Eberron is a campaign setting from like 1970 something. One of the oldest campaign settings other than the Forgotten Realms. I have gotten the book. I have not actually opened it. The Artificer, I have heard, is bananas. Sounds you make stuff, and there's like subclasses, like you can be an alchemist or a artillerist or a battlesmith, and you just make stuff.
How do you smith battles?
I think you make
Weapons
war
and armor?
gear. Yeah, but from what I've heard, it's ridiculous, and I am concerned that it's going to break some things. I haven't checked it out yet. My D&D campaigns have been up in the air in recent weeks. Maybe I'll switch over to this and do something ridiculous.
No, just keep playing Pokemon.
Yep.
All right. So without further ado, let's discuss Still There. So Pete, you picked the game. Why don't you explain what is Still There?
I did. Okay, so Still There. If you ever seen the movie Moon, it's basically the same idea. You're a lone astronaut, I guess you could call him, on a space station, just with an AI and a pet iguana for company, and your job is basically to take these readings of the surrounding stars for your corporate overlords and keep this space station that's sort of falling apart up and running. Eventually things get a little bit more complicated and you have to deal with these crises and emergencies as they emerge. But it's basically a guy who ran away from some of his problems in his real life to work isolated and alone with his AI compatriot on this space station.
Yeah.
That's pretty spoiler free, yeah?
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
So the basic gameplay here of Still There is waking up, having a list of tasks that you have to get through, and then going to sleep. Almost all of the tasks are extremely menial, and you're largely interacting with the space station point-and-click adventure style, but most of the actions you need to take involve a large control panel with like 10 or 12 different sections of it, and you need to read a bunch of manuals to know what all the dials and knobs do. So it'll ask you to do a very simple seeming task, but to do anything on this ship requires you to flip like 12 knobs and jiggle 12 cables, and then you can do the thing that you need to do. And that's basically what the gameplay is, moment to moment. Sometimes it's because you're given a task to do a thing that's obtuse and difficult. Sometimes it is because the ship is malfunctioning and you need to fix it. But it's always staring at manuals, and then doing a thing. Like, even feeding yourself is kind of a pain in this game.
Yeah, there's no like obvious path to doing it. You have to like recycle your water and then use a whole bunch of broken, half-finished oven equipment.
Yeah. You can't just like open up. There is some cereal on this ship, and I wanted to just open it and eat it, and my guy and Carl, the character you're playing as, is like, nah, I don't like cereal. You're gonna need to grab this oatmeal and then recycle your urine into water, and then combine the oatmeal and the water in a bowl, and then put it in a microwave, and then you can eat it. Everything's
So
just a
many
pain.
steps. Yeah. It's intentionally like just complex game design in order to, like, I guess simulate what being on a space station really is like.
I don't know. It seems like terrible space station design, though, too. Like, you'd think
Yeah.
they would just be like, okay, microwave this. There, your food's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say that the largest gameplay or design aesthetic in this game is just manual labor or complex finagling of controls that are obtuse. Just constantly doing a bunch of tasks that seem simple, but will take you a half hour to figure out what you're even supposed to do. And the game jumps you in with no tutorialization, really. And the manuals are manuals. Like, you need to read these manuals with graphics that kind of show you sometimes what knob you need to turn or what things are going to look like. But there's not a in-depth explanation of anything. It's usually just a few pictures, and then you're supposed to extrapolate everything from there. A picture, a few arrows, and then figure it out. And I found that to be interesting for about 20 minutes, I'd say. Like, the first few puzzles I tried to solve just using the manuals and puzzling out the different controls. After that, I found that I just was not enjoying that part of the gameplay and used a walkthrough. How did y'all experience the puzzles?
Almost immediately, I opened up a walkthrough, and because I know that there's a story to this game that I wanted to get to, but then the second or third task that you have to do, it's just I don't understand the switch flipping thing. I was I don't want to. I keep messing it up, and I don't know if I'm just stupid or if I'm reading this manual wrong. And then it turned out I was just stupid. So it's I
mean, if you're just stupid, we're all probably just stupid. I don't think the manuals are particularly good. This game reminded me in this sort of way of a much, I would say, better game, Papers, Please. Where the idea that it's hard and difficult and sort of finicky and cumbersome is an essential element of the game. And I think we all sort of had, Billy especially, but he's not around anymore. We all had our problems with that as sort of an idea back then too. And it made a lot more sense and I thought was a lot more fun in Papers, Please. Here it just sort of makes me ask, what sort of shitty engineer designed this space station?
Yeah, I would say that Papers, Please doles out its rules slowly, and it makes sure you understand each rule before it jumps you to the next rule. Yeah. This game starts in medias res, with Carl ostensibly being on this space station for many days, or weeks, or years even, before the game even starts. So you are expected to already know all this stuff, and Gorky, your computer companion, makes fun of you when you ask him for help, because it's obviously stuff that Carl should already know. But you, as the player, do not. So you'd have to deal with a lot of this nonsense that Carl would already know. He was already taught it. There was apparently a period when he had another person on the ship that tutorialized a lot of this menial stuff to him. But the game skips right past that. And so you're just left with a menu, and then you can ask Gorky for help every once in a while. But Gorky just mostly directs you to the manuals instead of actually telling you how to do anything. And from what I could tell, he did not give you improved tutorialization the further you got into a puzzle all that much. Usually he'll just direct you to the beginning of where you can find the solution. And then from there, unless you solve the earlier part of the puzzle, he won't give you any new dialogue or any new hints.
No, he's not particularly helpful except for that initial push. But I will say this for Gorky. He did sort of annoy me, but he's a nice shift away from what you typically see in your AI partners in a game like this. I think I shouldn't say game necessarily, in a story like this. I think the easy example would be HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the AI is typically always nefarious, up to something sort of, I don't know, sketchy in its way, where Gorky, he's for the most part, with a brief caveat, he's nice, he's helpful, he's a good, I was about to say dude, but I guess that's me improperly gendering the AI. He's a good AI. So, I mean, it's nice to see a situation where, as skeptical as I am about artificial intelligence, this one just basically does its job and does it pleasantly.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick, but he's not menacing you constantly. Just
he's
very
not
clearly. Yeah, he's not going to very clearly knife you as soon as you turn your back on him. Which many times, if it's a single person trapped on a ship with an AI, the AI is it's looking to kill you.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the gameplay was probably my least favorite part of this game. Finding the ways to make the story advance really bored me for the bored me, alternatingly frustrated and bored me, which is not great. But it's a point and click adventure. Like most point and click adventure games use kind of item combination and interface exploration. You know, you're moving through different rooms, you're picking up different items, you're finding out clever ways to combine them. This game, it's largely just this giant console that you're interfacing with. And the console's inscrutable other than these handful of manuals. And so you're basically just playing an instrument that you've never seen before exactly the way that it wants you to play it. And any other input just fails. It usually doesn't even fail in a way that gives you a hint as to how it failed. Very occasionally, the game will yell at you for, missing one or two steps along the way to solving the puzzle. But usually it's like, do the whole thing properly or else keep going because we're not going to tell you. Which I found to just be really annoying. And it just really gated me from seeing the parts of the game that I enjoyed, which was largely the story stuff. Does anyone have anything else on the puzzles? Anything that jumped out?
I mean, I'd just like to talk about the manuals for a second.
Sure.
So, like, I'm a semi-professional manual maker. And, I mean, these weren't particularly good manuals, but I don't think the game would have been interesting at all if they were particularly good manuals, because then it would have told you exactly what to do. But I think there is an interesting thing to ask about sort of the role of instruction manuals in a modern context, especially with something like space exploration where it's highly technical and highly skilled. But here we're seeing a future situation where, given the technology, basically anybody can do it with the right instruction. So it sort of shows the political import of instruction manuals, right? So when you combine the tendency to replace labor with automation and technology, right? So think of like e-checkout lines in grocery stores, combined with the gating of knowledge in increasingly specialized professions, you create a situation where people can't really interact with these machines that increasingly take over for them. And the way to fix that is through good instruction manuals, weirdly enough. So like, as maligned as they are and as sort of shitty the ones in this game are, it sort of shows how if you can make good instruction stuff, you can welcome more and more people into an increasingly technologized economy.
Agreed. And I think it's a shame that this game's instruction manuals do such a disservice to the tasks that you're trying to do.
Yeah, this could have been a great propaganda tool for instruction.
Yes, for the instruction manual industry. But instead, it's largely the instruction manuals are just vague enough so that you have to go out on a limb to puzzle things together. A lot of the times, it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a growing trend in. I know more than I should about instruction manual design now. There's a growing trend called minimalist design, where you basically organize it around tasks. Like, okay, here's the thing you want to do, and then you let the user explore at their leisure, because you typically learn better and you enjoy learning more when you're allowed to just sort of play with things. But this game is like the worst version of that, where they're like, here, just play with this until you achieve this end state with no real explanation of how to get there on the way.
Yeah, and a lot of the sections of the game seem to imply that there's a time constraint on the things that you're doing, when in fact there is not. So, like, your character has a health, like, he needs to eat and he needs to go to the bathroom, and time is clearly passing. There's also a health meter on your iguana and a water, I think it's temperature,
food and water, maybe.
Overall health.
Which, I mean, this isn't a big point, but did your guy's iguana die?
Yeah.
Yes, but
I don't think there's any way to prevent that. That was only my question.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But because that was maybe the most emotional I got in this entire game. That's not true. There were some other moments, but
you can keep its corpse too in your inventory.
Sure did.
Yep.
Just keep him with you.
Always. But I found that because there was this implied time constraint, Like, a lot of times it seems like your character would die or your ship would be destroyed if you did not resolve an issue expediently. Or you just can't move on. Like, you're stuck with your character dwindling resources. Like, you're running out of food pretty quickly in this game. It seems like you're not going to be able to survive more than a few days without a resupply, and it's unclear when the resupply is coming in. So I tried to do things quickly so my character wouldn't be starving or something like that. And that time pressure made interfacing with this machine and not knowing how to do it even more frustrating. Because it did not seem as though your character should kind of wander around trying to figure these things out, because ostensibly he knows it all already. There's no reason for him to. And so there's this disconnect between the play experience and the narrative design and where you're put in and injected into this story that I think does a disservice to the story as a whole. I wouldn't have minded if this story had taken place when you just arrived on the bento, but jumping it in and medias res, I think, just made a pretty big disconnect in my experience. Just think, there was one other thing in the gameplay. Oh, right, there's a monetary system.
Oh, yeah.
You get paid for some of the tasks that you do on the ship.
No.
Did either of you ever try to spend money?
I bought a jazz album, I think.
Yeah, I think I bought a game or something, and then I don't know if I ever actually did anything with it.
Yeah,
I don't think it ever shows up, does it?
I bought iguana food and I think a book, and then I never got anything. So even that element where you're getting paid some paltry sum for your menial tasks, it doesn't seem like that money does anything. So you order things and then they never come. So there were a lot of things going on in this game. Whole sections of your shift that you barely have to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't need the money as like a motivating factor. Like, it could have been eliminated easily enough.
Yeah, and I also, if you're going to put the money in, you could just give me the item at some point. Not make it feel like it was a waste of time.
It could actually show up.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be super meaningful. Like, you could just have a little song, like a single song.
Yeah,
or,
just a background music change for a small point.
Yeah, a description. There were similar things, like sometimes you have to send out emails to update people on star positions, and I actually tried to type out an email. Like, I actually wrote a whole, hey, here's the thing, it's located at this location, and then I hit send.
And they're like, nah.
And it said, no, you need to actually put in the email the proper way. And I'm like, oh, okay, my syntax was wrong on the star position. Okay, so I fixed that, and I made it match the star position format that they wanted. And then when I did that, my character deleted everything I wrote except the star position, and then hit send.
Damn.
Which is like, you put in a full text typing, like you allowed me to write in free text, and then you're just going to delete it all. Like, I tried to role play. I actually did it. I went on a limb, and then the first thing they did was, like, delete all of it.
That's old.
Your character also is working on a novel. Like, you've got a manuscript, but I don't think you can complete it. You don't seem to be able to continue it. You can just look at it and be sad.
Yeah, you can't add anything to it.
Yeah, so this game felt a lot more like a diorama of a character experiencing some sort of anxiety and isolation rather than me experiencing it, which kind of, I think, let's just go into the story a little bit, because I think that will better I can then better articulate my problems with some of the storytelling here. So, spoilers from here on out. This game is fairly new, but this is how the show works. So, still there. You're Carl. You've seemingly had a recent divorce from your wife because your daughter, Esh, passed away unexpectedly, and Carl kind of never got over her passing. And so you flew out to space in the corners of the galaxy just so that you could be alone and kind of be depressed in your lonesome. And so you're constantly in your own head, kind of dealing with the loss of your daughter. And it's in that context that a lot of the odd and seemingly otherworldly things that happen to your ship are interpreted, right? So there are moments when Carl is at moments of stress and the ship will take damage. There are moments when Carl falls asleep and he has these very lucid dreams that are very odd and evocative of his emotional state. What did you think of his relationship with the bento and his relationship with dreams?
As in like bento as metaphor for mental state?
Yeah. Because I thought for a while when I was playing this that it was a one-to-one, that maybe the ship isn't even there.
I never really went that far. I didn't even really notice. I shouldn't say notice. It didn't really occur to me to draw that connection beyond the fact that like the slovenliness of the bento is a reflection of his general lack of care for his life. Really, but I didn't make that damage connection. But that's an interesting idea now that you mention it, especially given the sort of solipsism of his existence on the bento.
Yeah, so there's two moments that jumped out to me. Like when you're trying to talk to, you eventually encounter a distress beacon from someone named Ellie. She is on a ship that is damaged. It cannot move, and it is running out of oxygen and running out of food. And so she is sending out an SOS beacon, and Carl's the only person to pick it up. And so you kind of have to find a nearby ship to go get them. You have to blackmail the captain of the ship to divert her path to go find Ellie's disabled vessel. And when there's a point where the ship captain calls you and says, "I can't find Ellie's ship, and now I'm mad at you." And as soon as that happens, the bento ruptures, and I think you need to fix either the temperature or the oxygen. There's one section where the temperature is rising, and there's one section where you need to fix the oxygen. And both times the subsystem fails about immediately upon something bad happening to Ellie or Gray, the ship captain you talk to, kind of calling you and calling out that something's weird is going on. So I found that the trigger was so specific around these moments where something bad happened to someone Carl cares about or to Carl that it seemed like the ship might be a metaphor or the ship might be directly connected to his emotional state. But I don't think the game even necessarily pays that off.
No. I mean, the connection you're drawing obviously makes sense, but I don't think it's a metaphor that the game's necessarily interested in developing, considering the game's really only interested in developing one metaphor, or analogy, perhaps is a better word for it.
Yeah, I do think that there's definitely a connection between the ship and Carl's emotional state. And as we get deeper into kind of the oddness of the ship, I think it becomes clear why that is. But it doesn't go all the way with it, right? It's not that the ship is Carl's mental state. They more come up with lore reasons why Carl's mental state is affecting the world around him. So what do you think of Ellie, the one character or one of two characters that you talk to other than Gorky?
She's fine, but my issue with her and my issue with this game in the whole sort of macro sense, I think can be summed up when she starts referring to Carl as dad.
Yeah.
Like it's like, I get it. Like she's a stand-in for his daughter. You don't have to tell me. It's obvious. It's clear. And it would make so much bigger impact if they just left it not even subtextual. It's textual really, but they have to throw it at you just to make sure you notice it. And I think that's sort of a symptom of video games in general, is sort of this just overwrought writing, which there could be any number of explanations for it, both dismissive and non-dismissive. But it sort of bothered me here that they just have to just beat you over the head with it so hard.
It's very on the nose.
Yeah, there's L and Esh both having the same number of letters, starting with the same letter, and being the same age. And Carl remarks that when he talks to L, "Hey, how old are you?" And she'll say, "Oh, I think she's 21." And he's like, that's how old Esh would have been. Like, they just needed to leave it there a few different times. They had a few different ways they could have left it without it becoming quite so on the nose, and they just kept going. I mean, it's not quite having a giant whale monster named Sin that's destroying everyone.
It's
but
still
it's
pretty
close.
Yeah, the other part of it is, So Carl obviously has some mental things going on. He has to take these drugs to fall asleep. Maybe. I mean, I'm not sure if they're his drugs or if the company's just like experimenting on him necessarily. But he takes these drugs and he has these wild, crazy dreams where these, visions appear and these like basically theater masks yell at him for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need any of that. Like the game makes sense already as sort of a sole individual exploring his complex relationship with his deceased daughter and his culpability in it. And if you want to like sci-fi it up, they toss in a time travel mechanic. Like you don't need these psychedelic hallucinations. It's just distracting from the rest of the story, which would have been admirably grounded without them.
Yeah, the first time that Greek chorus popped up, it took me so out of the, spaceship, doing stuff around this spaceship, that I was like, are we going to, some other place? I don't understand what's happening here. It was very weird, but I guess it was a dream, so it could be weird, but also why put that in at all?
Yeah, I would say for a game whose central gameplay mechanic is making you painstakingly aware of the minutia of Carl's life, having these dream sequences that tend to boil down to, hey, Carl, get over your daughter's death, but in increasingly fancy representations, like sometimes it's a Greek chorus, sometimes he's falling through endless space, sometimes it's psychedelic colors. But at the end of the day, all it's saying is, Carl, you're depressed, you're really sad about your daughter dying, but we need you to move on, bud. It's an interesting choice. I think they're just trying to break up the monotony of the gameplay and of his life and kind of showing him escaping in his dreams a little bit. Or this is where his subconscious can work on him because he's filling his daily routine with these menial tasks to kind of stop himself from thinking. So maybe as a way, he's deadening his emotions through these menial tasks, but he can't truly do it because when he's sleeping, his subconscious still speaks to him.
Yeah, that might be the best argument for it, is that he's so, repressed that in these drug-addled dreams are the only way they can emerge.
But he's not having those conversations with Gorky.
No, that's a good point. But I mean, it's again, even that creates this sort of inorganic feel to the whole thing, where it's just this sort of idea of dream-driven catharsis that would seem to be sort of out of step with the years and years he spent running from this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that the time frame that this game takes place on, it takes place over 5 days. I think it's so compressed that the idea that each of his dreams would be that impactful leading to this final conclusion, it just feels very much like happenstance, right? Instead of a natural progression, everything's hyper-accelerated because he's ostensibly been there for days, and then these are the 5 days that matter. He's had no progress before this, and then all the progress happens all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just to be explicit about the whole thing, so I don't think we've mentioned that. It turns out Ellie is in the future.
Yes.
So she's, 200 years or so in the future. So Carl can't really rescue her anyway. It's an impossible task from the start. And turns out the company that sent him to space was trying to investigate this time discrepancy, anomaly from the very beginning. His tasks were all meaningless from the start, which Gorky knew, but didn't tell him. But I guess I bring this all up to ask, why? Why have the time travel? I think it is poignant that Carl's task was ultimately impossible from the very beginning, but did we need time travel for that? So I guess my question is, what does time travel specifically add to this story?
Em, why don't you go first?
Well, my interpretation of it was someone saw Interstellar a few times and was like, that's pretty cool.
It's that's a father-daughter story.
Yeah, exactly. It's in space. I don't know. I mean, from what I can tell, the uh, time travel aspect doesn't contribute anything to the like overall narrative, especially when we have this very like a father figure mourning the death of his daughter as the like forward momentum of the story. So it seems like they just wanted to put in some more sci-fi stuff. They were like, how about time travel?
It even seems, just drawing that connection, the way you describe it, it even seems almost backwards.
Yeah.
That like Carl should be the one in the future as opposed to the past. Like there's some memory stuff going on here, but I still don't think that's very strong either.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my explanations all rely on the time travel element being involved. Because once you've got time travel, like there's some nice, Carl can't get over his past, and so he can't look to the future, and then, hey, here's this person from the future who mirrors someone from his past, and they're connected to each other, and Carl's obsession with time, this time he can't go back to, interacts with this anomaly that is around the bento that the evil company he works for is trying to study. But all of those elements of the plot don't need to exist if you're not going to go into time travel, right?
Yeah, like he doesn't.
So they do some interesting stuff with it because like it leads to these moments where you've got an anomaly. He's talking to this character who lives in the future, and she kind of has to accept that no help is ever going to come for her. Like you're able to save a version of her on a different timeline, but the one that called you will never be saved. So it leads to some cool moments with Carl interacting with this doomed woman. Like you learn each other's lives, you learn a little bit about what her circumstances were. She helps Carl kind of get over the death of her daughter by being a surrogate daughter. And you kind of get some of that catharsis. But for me, the most interesting part of the game was when you're kind of stuck in this isolated ship.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or reaching out to people. If it had just been another person who was stuck with no time travel elements at all, I don't know that it would have necessarily changed my impact.
No, I think you'd sell the same thing. I mean, maybe you want to make like we can't change the past argument.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, but my question then is, okay, then Carl accepting his past liberates him. He's now free. The fact that Ellie can't change her past dooms her. She's now dead because she can't change the past. Mm-hmm. So to make an optimistic argument for Carl and then point out, but by the way, it's going to kill Ellie, doesn't really seem to work out for this. Like, it wants to be a feel-good story at the end.
Well, at the end, I think you and Ellie accept your deaths, because Carl's ship is just flying out of control by the end of the game, and you realize that Carl is completely detached from time and space. Like he's jumping through time.
Yeah.
And he's hundreds of years past when his ex-wife passed away. Like he'll never meet another person he ever knew again. And so you basically end up going out into space towards this time anomaly, trying to meet Ellie. Because she's staring at the same anomaly, because you're near the same point.
Yeah, I think there's a relevant difference though between Carl's acceptance and Ellie's resignation.
Yes, and Carl just kind of being the father figure, kind of talking her through her final moments. I thought it was really poignant, but again, it feels like the ruminations on Carl and what his deal are. All of the things that help him get over his problems are external and highly manufactured.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels a little bit cheap to me that the thing that knocks him out of his depression is a call from the future, an SOS signal from the future.
Yeah, it feels a little unearned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I liked this game. Like, there were definitely some moments when Carl and Ellie are talking about death that I really enjoyed. Like, I found their readings poignant. And you have a moment where you also play your piano, your space piano, and she sings along with it.
Yeah, that was nice.
And that was pretty nice. There are some nice poignant moments, but all of the poignant moments are just dialogue, written dialogue, and the gameplay is not. The best moments of this game are when you're not playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is never like a great sign.
It's not always a great sign. And I'm fine with cutscenes. I think that writing obviously counts. It's just a shame that this game is built around this monotonous loop, and then the best parts are when it breaks away from it and says, hey, this isn't what's actually important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the moments when I felt this game had blood was when I was trying to figure out how to save Ellie and how to convince ship captain not to abandon her in space. But that's not the moment-to-moment gameplay for 80 to 90% of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a weird sort of undercurrent of like military industrial complex going on too, that like this warlike nation became a interstellar conglomerate and is taking over everything through business as opposed to war. Again, like interesting, like, ooh, cool, like what's happening here, but doesn't really do anything and is super peripheral to Carl's personal story, which is the driving force of the game, like we said.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ellie's explanation of this war-torn planet that she's from, I think, is a lot more interesting. If I had followed her life and her path to being an interstellar terrorist, that might have been a more interesting story than Carl's.
Yeah, where they're digging a tunnel to freedom, and every 10 meters they go, they have to seal off the last 10 meters behind them.
Yeah.
So they're sort of moving through this enclosed pocket of air in this tunnel. That's incredible. That would be a great story. I would have loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of left with this character who is listening to other people who are having lives that are more meaningful and interesting than his until the very end, when time is spiraling apart and he decides to abandon the bento. Man, when they killed my iguana, like, I did such a good job of feeding that thing, and then they just drain your oxygen.
Those motherfuckers.
They drain the oxygen and they kill it. Like, even when the ship was getting higher and higher temperatures, I made sure to seal off the iguana tank so that the iguana would survive. And then they just wipe out all the oxygen, and I can't save it.
Yeah.
Those monsters.
That's the whole movie making trick, right? Like, if you want to show somebody's evil, have them kick the dog.
Yeah.
If you want Carl to feel something, kill his iguana.
Yeah. But I did enjoy, you can take Gorky with you when you abandon the ship.
Oh, yeah?
Did you do that? There's a
I
floppy
I was
disk.
pissed. Gorky lied to me.
I forgave Gorky because I figured I'm going to die anyway, so why?
So what's the difference?
What's the difference?
I forgave him, but I left him there. I didn't realize you could take him with you.
No, I didn't even know you could either.
Yeah, I found a floppy disk, and if you give him the floppy disk, he's like, I'll put my memory on here.
Why is there a floppy disk?
Why does he fit on this?
Yes, an incredibly complex AI gonna fit on a floppy.
Well, he says he's not putting all of himself on the floppy disk. He's just putting the parts of his personality that Carl's friends with. So he's leaving behind a bunch of the data.
It's a floppy disk.
It's a floppy disk. It's great. I took the corpse of my iguana, I took my drugs, and I took Gorky, and then I jumped out the window.
Nice.
And I think I took the cereal, too.
I took the iguana. I think that's about it.
I tried to take the picture of my daughter, but I couldn't.
Aw.
Mm.
That's sad.
Because, you need to be haunted by her ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still there, I think, brushed at a bunch of interesting topics. It had some moments of genuine greatness towards the end and in some of the exchanges. But largely it was unfun to play, and the whole was pretty discordant.
Yeah, I think I'd pivot off that last point. I think you can make an explanation for why it's doing a lot of the things it's doing, but I don't think just an explanation is necessarily a satisfying or, relevant one.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you think? Final takeaways.
I mean, the story itself, does such work in the back half that it's almost a shame that it's attached to this like really finicky kind of bullshit game mechanics in the beginning, because there are some really good story moments that happen later down the line, and then if you just get frustrated with the life of, you know, being alone on this space station, it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, we were locked into playing all of it, but it's very easy to bounce off after the first 2 days or the first day and just never see that, because the game
you wouldn't get any of the good stuff.
It doesn't give you a lot of reason to stick with it in the first few hours. Honestly, you could bounce off of some of the early menial tasks pretty easily.
Yeah, I think I took a break after the first day or two.
Same.
Just because it didn't grab me yet. The actual interesting stuff, like, happens when you finally meet Ellie, but that doesn't happen until, like, day 3, I think.
And you need to then solve some of the most difficult puzzles in the game before you complete that stuff. And if you weren't using a walkthrough, you could easily just bounce off of it even harder. Because, like, you need to fix, what is it, like the oxygen system? Like, you need to do 3 steps before you can even start fixing the oxygen system, and then once you start fixing it, the manual sucks to figure out how to do it.
Fucking oxygen system was the worst.
Yeah, so I would say if you're going to play this game, use a walkthrough. If just figuring out puzzles off of a manual doesn't sound good to you, there's no shame in it.
Or just watch the walkthrough, because you'll get all the story elements.
Yeah, it's probably fun too.
Yeah.
This is unfortunately a game that's probably better watched than played. And I hate saying, like, I like cutscenes, I like games with a lot of story, but man, the gameplay here is just no fun. All right. So I think that's it for Still There. Now it is my turn to pick.
You are, baby.
Yet again.
You're up.
Oh boy. What do I want to play? Let me take a look at my Steam backlog.
Did I Am Jesus Christ come out yet?
No.
I don't think so. Also, I'm not giving whoever made that money for that.
No. I am not either.
I am not going to pay them. But man, you definitely help someone see again, I think, in that game.
You run through his greatest hits. You calm the waters, you split the loaves.
Yeah. You turn some water into wine. I love that there was I saw some sort of bar of Jesus power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your miracle energy, your MP.
Yeah. I didn't know Jesus had... I thought one of the whole things about Jesus was that he didn't have a meter. He didn't run out of that God juice.
No, man. You gotta ration that.
Turns out you need to ration it. Ooh, that might be fun. Okay, I've got some options here.
Okay.
Do we want to play something super actiony and fun, like just fun? Or do we want to... No, I'll give some options. Okay, we've got Wrecketeer, which is a Wrecketeer. It is an Item Shop's Tale. It's an RPG where you play as the proprietor of a item store, trying to help adventurers. So you sell items, and it's capitalism, you know. And
I think that started as a Flash game that I played a long time ago.
Entirely likely. Slay the Spire, which is a card game that I've run-based card game, which I've wanted to give a shot to, or Super Hot.
Oh, super.
Or Super Hot, which is a shooter that only moves when you do.
I'd be fine with any of the 3 except the card game. I'm not super into that.
I've had Slay the Spire on my wish list for a while.
Hey, look. Don't let me yuck your guys' yum. I'm fine with being outvoted.
I don't like when you describe it as yucking someone's.
Yeah.
Look, don't let me yuck your yum over yuck your yum. I mean,
Ugh. So
Double down.
I think I'm leaning towards Slay the Spire or Super Hot. Pete, have you ever heard of Super Hot?
no, I've never heard of either of them, to be honest with you. So my
That's a classic.
opinion might be uninformed either way.
I think that let's revisit Super Hot because at some point one of us might have access to some actual VR stuff, and Super Hot has a VR mode that is apparently extra excellent.
Okay.
So let's do Slay the Spire. It's run-based. It's pretty short. It's a lot of different run-based stuff.
Right.
So we've done run-based games, but here's finally a somewhat roguelike that has a gameplay format that I enjoy.
Let's do it.
Is there a reasonable conclusion to Slay the Spire?
No clue. We're going to
Okay.
find out.
We'll just play it until we find something.
Yeah, if you hit like 80 hours and you haven't gotten to it yet, like don't worry about it.
Well, I think you need to slay it.
Oh,
At some point you've slayed the Spire, and then it's done.
gotcha.
Makes sense.
All right, cool. So next time we will be playing Slay the Spire. Thank you, Pete.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. Everybody come back around next time.
Thank you, M.
Thank you. Looking forward to knocking something off my wish list.
Excellent. And thank you, listeners. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That is our email address. And you can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And for all of you who are already in the Discord or want to get in the Discord, our game night's coming up on Friday. We're going to be playing Pokemon. We will be gym leaders, M and I. And we've got some Pokemon types. We're not going to tell you, though. You're going to find out what gyms we each represent.
It's a surprise.
It is a surprise. So till next time, peace!